This is Chris Theodore. It is August 26th, 2024. The subjects I'm going to read to you that I'm going to talk about today. Number one, the biggest challenge of fatherhood. The biggest challenge of fatherhood. What is the biggest challenge of fatherhood? It is trying to fake my kids out that I love them more than I love my dog. Now, what is the biggest challenge of fatherhood? So, the biggest challenge to me is preserving oneself, and preserving, by that I mean staying true to what you really care about, and at the same time, or not at the same time, well, here it is, really. It is having enough love when you don't feel like loving them. Because remembering that they are at this place where they are essentially under your control. You are responsible for them, and that can be very heavy. After a while, after time, when your kids aren't doing everything you want them to do, or they're fighting with you at every turn. For me, the biggest challenge of fatherhood is being as good as I can be when I'm alone with them, and not getting angry. This is a challenge for me personally. Not reacting, not allowing my children to rile me up, to get me in a place where I'm ugly. And so these are definitely some of the challenges. What is the most important challenge, or what does the thing say? The biggest challenge. What is the biggest challenge of fatherhood? I kind of keep going back to this idea of that preservation of yourself, despite being in, as your children get older, this whirlwind and tornado of the conflicting desires, and this is what I want to do, and yet doing whatever you can so that you strive for excellence. I like a statement which David Dida says, which is, don't allow your family to be an excuse. Don't use your family as an excuse for not giving everything you have to the world, right? For the world. I definitely can see that sometimes I get into a situation or a chapter or a month or longer when I think like fatherhood is enough, rather than saying, no, I'm on this earth for a bit of time, and my children, my wife, they have me for a good part of this time, and in my daily actions, I'm present. And so I can't let the fact that kind of feels good and comfortable get in the way of being the man that I'm supposed to be. So fatherhood to me is both a blessing and a challenge. It's not a curse in any way. I don't see it as a curse, because if you see fatherhood as a curse, that means you're really, really out of control in terms of your discipline and your lack of self-control. So yeah, those, if I had to distill it down to one thing, what is the biggest challenge of fatherhood? I would say loving my children with the love and patience and kindness that they deserve, and preserving who I am despite constantly being around a family, holding true to who I am, as well as doing the work I have to do despite both the chaos and the comfort of my family. Next up, what are the biggest issues in comparison to how little they are discussed? What are the biggest issues in comparison to how little they are discussed? So definitely, the number one that comes to my mind is nuclear weapons. The fact that right now there are nuclear weapons on hair trigger alert, and both pointed at us and pointed at China and pointed at the Soviet Union. Pointed at Russia, pointed at any adversary that we think we have to destroy completely. And so why this is so crazy is because we actually know that we have created what Daniel Ellsberg called a doomsday machine, in which our systems right now are such that they don't need to be like this. And yet we are in a situation where it's like that metaphor, where it's really like this metaphor, except the fact that it's even worse. So the metaphor is this: imagine two people in up to their waist in gasoline, and both people have torches in their hands, right? Now, why that's actually apt is because that's how crazy it is. You know, we're staring down our adversary saying, okay, all we have to do is within 30 seconds, we can launch all of our nuclear weapons towards you. And they are basically saying, yeah, we can too. So rather than, and this is why it's so crazy in terms of the bigness of this issue compared to how little it's talked about. Imagine how crazy that is, that we aren't discussing the disarmament of this ridiculous system. We're not even talking about it. If we get through this, or if, let's say, anyway, I was gonna say if we don't get through this and, you know, billions of people die, which they would because of a nuclear winter, which is now a scientific fact in terms of this is how bad it will be. There won't be enough sun, there won't be enough water, there won't be enough warmth, and our capacity to feed the billions of people in the world will end. So imagine how absolutely insane it is that we aren't talking about nuclear weapons and what we could do to diffuse the situation. Like to use the metaphor, we aren't talking about the fact that we could talk the person out to, okay, let's take off one torch. Since you have two, why don't you take off the torch? Okay, what do you need to remove the torch from your hand? Well, I'll remove it if we're not even talking about this. Can you imagine how absolutely insane that is? When what we're talking about is the death of billions of people, and yet we're not talking about nuclear weapons abolition. What would really help America? Oh my God, I love this question. What would really help America? Okay, so I think the things that would help America, I'll just take one at a time. I think we need higher taxes on the wealthiest people, and I'm talking about like above $5 million a year and up. I heard something like $500 billion would be earned if the tax rate went from what it is currently, which is about 8% on like the billionaire class, and if we raised it to like 25%, as if, if you're a billionaire, raising that up is still gonna wipe you out. It's not. And so what would really help America is taxation of the ultra wealthy. And let's think about this. Why don't we do this? We don't do this because the ultra wealthy own our information systems. They have their finger. They can say, let's deplatform that person, or let's just turn down the volume and turn down the reach of this idea, right? Another very, very interesting thing when it comes to what America needs is less corruption. Less corruption. And one of the principal ways you reduce corruption is you make it not pay to just hoard wealth. Because people, when they are thinking, wow, I'm gonna just take all of this money, yeah, it's risky, I might get in jail for it, but I'm gonna do it because I wanna just amass more and more money. Well, if you tax the ultra wealthy, you're gonna start diminishing the motivation for corruption. And what do you do at the same time? So you diminish the motivation and reward for acting corruptly and engaging in fraud, right? I mean, does anybody really need more than $20 million? Really? Does anyone need really more than $5 million? But if you ever took a look at the graph about what the what the wealthy, what people, like how much wealth is packed into the top 1% or the top 0.1%, it's like most of the nation's total wealth and total income is going to this number. So if we did like the Eisenhower Republicans did, we taxed the super wealthy, you have more equal, you have a better feeling of a nation, right? You're not so like pining, oh my God, I'm not as wealthy as that billionaire over there, so my life sucks. There's less that, there's less anxiety, and you have a better nation. So higher taxation of the ultra wealthy would go a long way. What would it also do? It would clean up the political system. Capping how much money anyone or any corporation can throw at a client that they basically want to install in government and lord over us. Does anybody really want that? And now think about, why is it that we don't hear more about capping the insane amounts of money that corporations and people can now throw at a at a candidate or at a party? Nobody should be able to screw up and poison and screw our system that badly. So those are the things that I believe would most help America. Taxation of the ultra wealthy, period.